We're live. Awesome. Hey everybody, this is Taylor Fabus, obviously coming from my barn here with my horse Ozzy. Everybody say hi to Ozzy. We have several horses standing by for you today. After visiting several fairs throughout the summer, I found something that I think that I can share with everybody, and it looks like it's a common area of need and maybe some questions. So we're going to talk about bit and bridle fit, and we have, like I said, several horses, several sizes of horses, several types of bits that we're going to talk about so that hopefully you're best prepared to go in the ring with a bit and a bridle that is fitting your horse, okay? We're right in the middle of fair season. Like I already mentioned, I've been to several, whether I'm just a visitor or I'm the judge, and I've noticed that this is an area that we really could use some room for improvement, okay? So we're going to start out with Ozzy here. I recognize that I will probably miss some things. We're live right now, but we knew if we didn't go live that I would never have a take perfect enough to post, so we're just going to wing it, all right? So be kind. If I forget some important things, feel free to throw them in the comments. Also, after I post this video, I'm going to post a link to an article, an MSU Extension article that I wrote about bit and bridle fit that should hopefully be helpful in case I miss anything. Here, what Ozzy has on is a pretty standard, just work tack bridle that we use for lessons. So you'll notice, although that he's using a shank bit here, that we are using non-split reins because that works really well for the kiddos. The nice thing is these reins snap right off, so that if I wanted to change out to reins that I could use in a show, I could definitely do that. A couple things that I see, some common things. I see horses that have shank bits like this without a chin strap. And you may think, since it doesn't have that, that somehow you're being a little bit kinder to your horse, but it's actually the opposite. What that does is it allows that bit, if there were a port in there especially, to really kind of flop around in your horse's mouth, and it could be quite painful. So we need to please leaders and 4-Hers, make sure that if you have a curb bit, which will be explained in that article that I'll post below, what a curb bit is. If you have one of those, you absolutely must have a chin strap. It can be chain with nylon like this, or it can be leather, all nylon, does not matter. What that does is when this bit is pulled, the reins are pulled, this tightens up on the chin groove of the horse, and that allows not only for there to be pressure there, but also pressure on the horse's pole. Okay, so that's much different than a snaffle bit, for example, which would be direct pressure. The rein would be pulling directly on the bit, the mouthpiece itself. There would be no chin strap, or the chin strap wouldn't work like it would in a curb bit at least. And you would have no leverage because there's no shank on the bit. So there's just a few reasons why you absolutely must have that piece. Also, I've seen sometimes these are super loose or super tight, neither of which are very effective. So make sure that there's about 2 finger widths between the horse and the chain itself. You'd be surprised how much happens when you pull. You can see that that tightens right up on Ozzy. Can you see it, Kate? Pretty much. So when I pull, it tightens right up. And when they're not pulling, it's pretty loose, okay? 2 finger widths. Another thing that I see far too often is that, can we see Caroline here? This is my daughter, my filthy daughter here. All right, scooch out of the way. I'm going to show.
She has another daughter.
I do have another daughter that is asleep, which is why we're doing the video right now. You might notice here on this headstall that I have a knot tied in it. This headstall was just too long, so I tied a knot in it. You could totally cut it and add more holes. I wouldn't do this if it were a show headstall, but it's nice and smooth. It's not rubbing on him, so that's why that knot is there, in case anybody wondered. This is a super awesome headstall that's a quick change. Don't want to wake Ozzy up, my goodness. Here we go. Okay, so another thing that I see is that the bit is too loose in the horse's mouth. I honestly don't think I've ever... We'll get to Ranger in a minute. That's him screaming. I honestly don't think I've ever seen a bit too tight in a horse's mouth. Does not mean that that can't happen, but far more often you see a bit that is hanging in the horse's mouth. And I can remember seeing that for as long as I've been showing, okay? So it's a really common mistake, so don't feel too bad if you notice it, but we're here to help you fix it. So you've probably heard that there should be 1 to 2, I say even maybe 3 wrinkles right at the horse's lips here. That will tell you that it's in a pretty good spot. How I like to do it, which is a little harder to explain, but I put my finger and my thumb between the bit and the corner of the horse's mouth, and you should feel some pressure there. It should take a little bit of work to get my finger there. Shouldn't be so tight that I can't do it. Shouldn't be so loose that there's a gaping spot there. So this fits Ozzy really well. You don't see him chomping on the bit too much here. So it's working pretty well for him. We're gonna take this exact bridle and put it on a different horse. And I want to show you that you have to adjust the bridle every time you change horses. Okay, so work with us. We're gonna go visit Ranger, who's excited to see us. We take this off slowly, let the horse kind of guide it out of their mouth. When I hear a bit clank on a horse's teeth, send shivers down my spine. All right, let's go visit Ranger. This is Ranger, guys. Say hi to Ranger.
Want to move to better lighting?
Better lighting? Sure. He's finally happy. He's in the spotlight, literally and figuratively. So on this, we can just leave the halter on too. I'm going to put the reins on first. I always try to do that in case Ranger wanted to go for a walk. I have at least something to hold him if I didn't have this halter on. So that will get those off the floor too. You certainly don't want the reins on the floor. You can imagine the safety hazard that is. Okay, so we're gonna put this, directly came off Ozzy, we're gonna put it on Ranger's mouth. They're gonna share a little spit. Okay, you can see here, guys, they're different sized horses and different sized heads. So now when I do that check, there's not pressure, there's no wrinkles between the bit and the corners of his mouth. So we need to make it go up. Since he uses this pretty regularly, I know it needs to go up 3 holes. And then just because I adjusted it on one side, I then have to kind of shimmy it so it's even pressure on both sides of the mouth. Now we have those 2 wrinkles. Okay, you also want to check the chin strap and see if that fits him well. It still does. So we're good there. Okay, let me go tie him back up. Then we're gonna put a snaffle on a pony.
Look at that cute pony.
Are you gonna make me do this?
Yeah.
All right, we're putting an English bridle on this super cute little POA. So again, I'm gonna put the reins on. So this is a snaffle bit. Let's look at it together a little bit. This is a corkscrew snaffle, so you can see that there's some texture there, which does affect the severity of the bit, but this does not have a spot where the reins are affixed. So there is no leverage on this bit. You do not have to have a chin strap. It's not going to act on the pole as a pressure point. This is much, much different. This is the type of bit that you would start a young horse in, dressage, something along those lines. All right, this is not her normal bridle. You can see I kind of guide this in her mouth again. Let that be comfortable. So this isn't her normal bridle. It's close, but we're not sure it's gonna fit really, really well. I'm also gonna make sure her hair is all fixed. All right, this seems too tight to me, so I'm gonna go ahead and loosen. Know that there are different pieces of leather here, different cheek pieces. So make sure that you are loosening the part that is actually attached to the bit. Okay, that's better. Again, remember shimmy so it's even. All right, she's got a bridle path, so I'm gonna fix her hair just so it's comfortable. Okay. All right, that feels good to me. How are we doing on wrinkles here? So you can see why the wrinkle thing works pretty well, but it's not foolproof, because if I put my thumbs there, there's definitely pressure. If I tightened this up to where it had 2 to 3 wrinkles, I think it might be too tight. Okay, so really you should just kind of get comfortable with feeling what that type of pressure is. You agree, Kate? I'm looking at you. Okay. Let's take a look at this Cavison. Okay, the pony this is used for is a different pony. Also, I should probably finish putting the whole bridle on here. And the throat latch. Again, the throat latch should not be giant. It should not be super tight. I like to be able to get a few fingers in there, or a hand. We all are familiar with what a hand measurement is, okay? In case they need to bridle up or something like that, they should be able to flex there at the pole. Okay, this Cavison should be tight enough where they can't really chomp on the bit, but for me, I think this Cavison or noseband is a little too snug on this pony. So I am going to loosen it one, and I think that that's much more comfortable. I should have done that before I put it on, so it was really easy for her to open her mouth, but obviously she did it like a champ. Okay, I think that those are all the big points I wanted to mention. Really make sure, I didn't mention necessarily why we're making sure the bit is kind of nice and tight up to the corners of the mouth. So some people are worried about putting the bit in too tight and that you're being mean to your horse. I promise you it's just the opposite. When it's too loose in the mouth, you could actually be hitting the incisors or those front teeth, and obviously that would be extremely uncomfortable. If you aren't familiar with the anatomy of a horse's mouth, they have incisors in the front of their mouth and molars back here with bars that run basically about, let's see, 2-3 inches on this mare. There are no teeth there. So that's where the bit should sit comfortably, okay? It sits right on top of the tongue, and she's gonna be able to feel it and really effectively communicate with the rider that way. But if you have it clinking on your teeth, you can all imagine why that would be horrible. And you might see a horse flipping its head a lot, really chomping at the bit because it's trying to get that bit in a comfortable position. So if you see some of those signals, they might be trying to tell you it's not fitting right. You can see this mare, this isn't a bit that's familiar, so she's just kind of chewing on it, licking her lips. Chewing on it and licking their lips is totally fine, but if they're chomping and throwing their head, that's a different story. So feel free to add things in the comments that you have found to be useful when you're fitting a bit and bridle to a horse, but I hope that this is useful for you. Feel free to share it if you see anything that's useful. But otherwise, check out the comments. I'll put a link to an article there, and have a great week, guys.